Hello.
Hey,
Brian,
Brian.
right
How
on.
are you guys?
Can't complain. Welcome to the
Good.
little podcast that could.
I like it.
hmm
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah,
Right on.
for sure. So you're a busy
So,
guy, Brian. You got your own show, you're touring. Tell us about all that.
Yeah, since streaming took over about 10 years ago, we stopped making any money on selling music whatsoever. So then it was, making money through touring. That's about the only way you can make any money these days as a musician. And then even that's not enough. So I do a side gig with a classic rock radio station, and that for the first time in I don't know how long, I've got, full insurance benefits and the whole thing. It's not a lot of money. There's not a lot of money in radio either, but it's all very helpful. It's
Yeah,
different income streams. It's the only way to do it to stay creative.
yeah,
So.
yeah,
interesting.
for
So
sure.
when you get into radio, what was the first thing that you kind of were like, huh? Like, was there anything that was like the aha moment from being in
Sure.
a band and having your music played and stuff, and then suddenly you're that guy playing other people's music? Was there something
I had
weird?
I had a really weird aha moment, and that was that they play the same songs every day. It's like how many times can we? No offense to Tom Petty, no offense to Bon Jovi, but it's like every other day I'm playing the same songs, and so my dream for the show was to do a lot of classic rock trivia and about the songs and stuff, and like I've done every bit of trivia on every single AC/DC song that we play and like run out of interesting things. And I don't program the music, so you got a program director. And so if I want to play something, I have to get the request in a week ahead of time. I guess it's just the nature of what the business is when I'm not qualified to choose my own music on this station. It's a pretty big station in Grand Rapids. It's there's two really big stations, so I get it. They don't want to give me the reins, but someday I'm going to take over all of it.
Yeah, and that's one of like I don't know if you know my backstory. I did 20 years of radio.
Oh yeah, so
And so I get it. Like, and that's one of the things, like, as you get further and further down that path, you'll start to feel like, just give me the reins.
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah,
play this song not because I want to be a shit disturber. I want to play
yeah.
the song because I think it will help my show.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm the same way. And now that 90s, which is just crazy. I mean, now 90s is considered to be classic rock.
Right.
And so we're playing, we play I get to play some Pearl Jam, I get to play some Stone Temple Pilots. I have to put in the request, three or four times to get them to play a little Radiohead, which they finally agreed. And so I get to play Creep every once in a while. But Soundgarden, I'd love to play Soundgarden. That fits right in that whole rock and roll genre. Who doesn't like Soundgarden? It's
Yeah,
I don't
like,
trust you if you don't like Soundgarden. Come on.
yeah, exactly. There are a handful of bands that I won't trust you if you don't like them.
yeah.
Yeah, So,
Is that where you draw your own musical influence from, like Soundgarden and those kinds of bands from the 90s, or like I guess before?
no, I think that was a lot of collateral creativity. We would look to other bands to see what everybody else was doing when it comes to recording the songs. We wanted a current sound in our albums when we first got signed. That's why the Freshmen, it took so long from the time I wrote it to the time it was a hit. We had recorded it three or maybe four times until we got the current sound right. And I think with a good song, I think that it's easy to say the song is going to stand on its own, just acoustic guitar and a vocal, but it never would have made it. It never would have been a hit song on radio the way that it was originally. So, yeah, so we would look to other bands and see what other bands were doing, who was producing them, who was mixing the records, and we would follow that path. As far as being influenced, I mean, all my influences come from the 70s and 80s. Really, the 90s. The great thing about the 90s, and I think that most 90s bands, or most of my friends who are in 90s bands, grew up listening to classic rock. I mean, that's, very heavily influenced by Zeppelin, and, there's a Stone Temple Pilots song. what's the name of it? Oh shoot, the riff is a direct rip-off of I've Got a Name by Jim Croce. Ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. What song is it? Only yesterday. Anyway, it's a direct in the key rip-off of Jim Croce. And if Scott were still here, I would call him out on it.
Yeah.
Right. Right. But it's hard to go away from your influences. Like this is this when you grow up to these bands, how can
Yeah,
you not be, swayed or influenced by the chord progressions or
yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's almost impossible.
If you're not doing that, I think when you were in the 90s bands especially, I think it's inauthentic, I mean, we went out of our way to not do a record scratch or something in one of our songs because there was a late 90s period. I think it started with Bop with Hanson. Suddenly, Better Than Ezra, a bunch of other bands like us were doing a record scratch or having a DJ on stage. I'm like, that's just not who we are. I can't go that far, even though it might be catchy and might be an additional hook for a song to be a hit. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
So
Yeah. By the way,
being
it's
authentic is the most
Interstate
important.
Love Song is the STP song that
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
you were
thank
going
you.
for there.
That's the one. I should know it because we play it every other day.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly right. Radio.
Yeah. I
And
guess
and
there's a
so
balance between, like you said, you look to see what everyone else is doing, but you don't want to be the exact same as somebody else. So how do you find that balance between finding your original voice and, not sounding too much like somebody else?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't, I think that, when I'm writing a song, when we were crafting a song in the 90s, and this is still true today, is that if it starts to remind me of somebody else's song, I'll change something about it so I'm not too close to it.
Right.
Now, that being said, it's the same thing with my own stuff. I'm not gonna write a song that sounds like the Freshmen. I know that that's that's a very unpopular opinion with the record labels and with my manager, but I am not. I have zero interest in writing another song like that. And I think that there are a lot of bands who would churn out the same song, the same sounding song over and over and over, and that was kind of their niche. But that's probably one of the things and one of the reasons why, we failed to continue to chart in the top 10. Colorful is a song. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that where you are, but Colorful was a pretty big song for the movie Rockstar.
Yeah.
And, RCA didn't want to release it as a single, even though it was in the end of the movie. And Mark Wahlberg lip synced to my voice. I mean, it was a no-brainer to be a single. And they didn't want anything to do with it because Warner Brothers made the movie and they had their own record label. And they just thought, well, we're not going to help them in any way. And I was like, well, RCA should pick up the soundtrack
what?
and put the soundtrack out. And they're like, we just, we don't want to work with Warner Brothers movie,
Oh,
with a Warner Brothers movie. And so now that Rockstar album, you can look it up. It sold like 4 million copies. And the song now has become one of those sleeper hit songs for us that took 20 years to
right.
get any traction. But finally people are recognizing it that we can play it. We can play it at a show and you get the same roar from the opening chords as you do the Freshmen. And it's been a long time coming, but
Wow.
I'm grateful for it for
The
sure.
politics of that is just like
Crazy.
yeah, I think most people are like, what? That doesn't
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
any sense.
It's a
Yeah.
shame that the
There's,
bureaucracy kind of interferes with the art because that's ultimately what the fans care about is the product. We don't care about the labels and all that. So fans
yeah.
hear more music from you, right? So
Yeah. Well, not you specifically, but the masses are really still being spoon fed. And I feel like it's not as bad as it used to be when MTV was hot and when radio was really hot, corporate radio, commercial stations. You would hear the same songs again over and over and over. Great for an artist because you make those royalties off of that. But today it's quite a bit different in that it's gotten back to word of mouth. Have you heard this yet? Have you heard this song yet? Have you heard this? Or you should check this out. And that's the way that I get. That's the way I get introduced to new music. I certainly don't get it from the radio,
Yeah.
and I like that. It was like in the early days when you'd make a mixtape and you'd say, "Hey, check these bands out. I discovered these bands, and I'm going to make you a mixtape of all my favorite stuff." And you go, "Oh my God, these are amazing!" And then you go out and buy their records. Remember the '90s? I mean, that was
Yeah.
like this is exactly what it was. You go to a record store,
So
whatever that is.
as a radio host, do you remember when you made a mixtape and the DJ always talked over top of the song and it was like the bane of your
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you refrain from doing that or do you commit
I
that to?
do.
Okay.
The funny thing is that funny you bring that up, and I've talked about this on the show before. When I was a kid, I had one of those little Sears tape recorders, where you had to push the record and play button at the
Yeah.
same time, and then the really cheap microphone. And I would be a DJ, and I would put a record on, and then I'd hold the microphone up to the speaker, and then I'd introduce the next song, and then put another thing on the speaker and make my own DJ tapes because I fancied myself to be a DJ one day.
Love
Uh,
it.
so yeah, so I mean, making mixtapes though now. I mean, right now, and I love that there's a resurgence in cassette tapes. I don't know if you guys have heard that at all or known that, but the kids are loving cassette tapes now, and I'm like, let's get back to those days. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'm curious, like, because of course your brother is in the band as well, Brad.
Yeah, Brad. Yeah.
Do you guys always like agree on stuff, like as
Oh
kids and
God.
stuff through the years? Like all the music was kind of the same, similar? No, like was there bands you're like, no,
Um,
I don't get that shit, dude.
Well, we don't always get along. Brad and I get along pretty well. He's my favorite of my siblings for sure. um, we got 7 kids in the
Oh,
family, and he and
oh
I are
wow.
the most close. Uh, Brad and I have come to fisticuffs on a number of occasions in the last, 3 or 4 years, even. But that's all part of the process. There's nobody I would rather play with. But as far as musical styles, I learned about XTC from Brad, and I'm a huge XTC fan. I learned about XTC late, like in 90, I don't know, maybe 89 or 90 because of Brad, Oranges and Lemons. I don't know if you guys are familiar with XTC at all, but I was just blown away by the production of XTC. They had one hit song, Dear God was a pretty big hit for them. And over the years, I've just devoured everything. And then I got a chance to write with Andy Partridge, the lead guy in XTC. So I went over to his house in Swindon, England, and we
That's cool. How did that
sat in a
happen?
little tool shed, and we wrote a song called "Blow You Away" that was on the oh, what was the name of that movie? It was only in theaters for a little bit. It was with Ray Fine and Uma Thurman, and it was a takeoff on a TV show, The Avengers, the original Avengers, not the Avengers, not the Marvel thing. Anyway, so that movie was in the theaters for like 15 minutes or something, maybe 1 or 2 showings. So it never really did anything. But so yeah, so Brad's introduced me to some stuff. I've introduced Brad to some stuff, and we don't really, when we write an album, Brad and I don't sit and compare notes. I'll write something and he'll write a bass line for it, and I'll say, hey, it'd be great if we move this bass part you have over to the bridge. Let's write a new part that doesn't conflict with the lyric and that kind of thing. So we collaborate in a great way. Brad's truly one of the great bass players out there. I honestly, and it's not just because he's my brother or he's in my band. Every producer we've ever worked with is just blown away, jaw-dropping melodies. He's very McCartney, and so he definitely carries his weight for sure.
Hmm. Do you think you have a leg up on other bands because of having your brother in the band?
I don't know how that would be a leg up. I think that if anything, it might be a detriment to a lot of bands.
Hmm.
The relationship between Noel and Liam Gallagher. Look at the Black Crowes. I mean, these guys can't get along. Look at the Kinks. I mean, it's like, wow, honestly, one of the greatest bands of all time, and they hate each other.
Right.
So yeah, I would think it'd be more of a detriment
Hmm.
to anybody else. Fortunately, I think Brad we have a mutual respect for each other's abilities for sure, for sure. And that's ultimately that what you need in the band.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. You talked about your song, The Freshman, and how you'd recorded it. It went through several iterations before you decided, before you found success with it. Can you tell us a little bit about the story behind the song?
Yeah, so I had a short story idea. It started with what would happen if a young couple in high school boyfriends and girlfriend, what would happen if uh, she got pregnant and they got married? Because I mean, I grew up in a very conservative Christian home. And then what if she lost the baby and they were married? And then they're going to be married for the rest of their life or whatever. And maybe they didn't really even like each other to be married. So it started there. And then I thought, well, I had another element to it. Maybe he doesn't even know what was his baby. And so the story ended up being two men that, happened to date the same girl at the same time, and she was going back and forth, and nobody knew who the baby was, who the father was. And so it started there. And then you start to take poetic license, and because it was such an early song for me as a songwriter, and I hadn't really honed my craft yet, I went too far and had her commit suicide. I mean, I threw every depressing thing in there that I possibly could, but who knew? I mean, it hit, and when it hit really big right away. I mean, I remember playing this song the first time ever where I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. No, it was Kalamazoo, Michigan, at a place called the Gravity Lounge, and I had just written it. And I said, I'm going to play it tonight. And I didn't know the song well enough. And I played it, and I totally blanked on the words. But, so I was making up nonsense words and everything. But I got to that, she was touching her face. I knew that section, and I knew the chorus pretty well. And I remember immediately after that show, or after that set, we used to play 4 or 5 sets back then, I had a bunch of people come up and go, what was that song about the lady touching her face and everything? And I was like, oh, we got something here. This is going to be a good one. So
Yeah, that's the best time. The thing about, playing new songs at shows, like you can straight up see right away, does it work or not, right?
Yeah, so that's one of the joys of being a touring artist and playing. I mean, when we're on tour, we play a lot of shows. We play a couple hundred shows a year. And it can be the same thing. We try to mix it up as much as possible, play stuff we haven't played in a while. We'll re-rehearse old songs at sound check, that kind of thing. One of the great thrills is playing something brand new that nobody's even heard. We have a new song on our album called Tattoo that I just absolutely loved, that Channing Lee and I wrote together, my writing partner in the band. And I was so anxious to play it, and now we just made a video for it, and it's going over like gangbusters. It's our most popular single off the new record, and that's one of those things where I was like, we played it live, and people loved it, and so yeah, so we'll always try new things. There's a handful of songs where you go, yeah, this isn't going to go over live, for whatever reason, that we won't try, but I mean, honestly, there's always on every album there's 3 or 4 songs where I go, yeah, the crowd's really going to love this. Let's try it out. And then sometimes I'm surprised and people are like, so you never know.
Yeah. So your new album, how does it compare to the sound that you produced in the past? Is it comparable? Does it?
Yeah, very much so. We went through a period, we've put out how many albums now? I think this is the 10th or 11th album. We do an album every 2 or 3 years. We went through our phase where it was more acoustic stuff, and we really didn't lean into the whole 90s sound. This album has all of those elements. There's a song called Dust that I encourage people to listen to Dust is a very, very 90s sounding song. Tattoo is stripped down, and I love that as well. Um, but this is more a collection of songs that sound like the old Verve Pipe, and a lot of that has to do with Brad's return to the band. You know, this is the first album that Brad's been on since he returned. He quit for, he was gone for about 12 years, and we did all those albums without him. And everybody, that's the reaction online, and everyone is like, wow, this sounds like the old Verve Pipe. It's like, oh, fantastic. You know, of course, every musician and every band thinks that their newest album is the best album they've done. But you know, we never put filler on a record. Like it takes a lot to get a song on the record, and anybody in the band can write, and everybody does write, and we work together to make sure that the song is absolutely the best it can be to be on the record. You know, there's no filler on any of them, but you know, the sound changes and evolves over the years, and I think we're back to that early place where we were from 92 to 98, you know.
That's cool. And I don't know how to ask this, but I guess I'll just straight up ask it. They all say, you know, like you need one hit song. As an artist, you need one hit song.
Yeah.
Would you be where you are today if you didn't have the Freshmen? First question. And also, do you make it financially off of one song?
Well, since we talked about you know, that I had to take the side gigs and everything, the radio show and everything, I don't know if you can now, especially what's a hit song? I mean, is it a hit song on TikTok? You know, what is it? You know, so that's a whole different thing there. I'm not sure if you can make it on one hit song anymore. I don't think that would be a viable way to do it, to try to write a hit song. The nice thing is you can tour on that hit song for my entire life, you know. So yes, I'm not sure that we would have made it, or I would have made it this far. I wouldn't have been able to reach as many people. I wouldn't have been able to tour Europe and tour now as much as we do had I not written The Freshman, if that hadn't been a single. And it was almost not a single. I mean, RCA was ready to pull the plug after the second single failed. We had our first single for that album was called Photograph, and that did pretty well worldwide. We had a great video for that. It was a buzz clip. And so that did pretty well. I went to number 5 or 6 on the charts. And then we had a song called Cup of Tea, which is a fan favorite, but just tanked it. And the record label was ready to pull the plug. It was like, what are you talking about? You said there were 5 singles on this record. You know, so thankfully we got that opportunity. And now I can afford to pay for my kids' college, you know.
Yeah, right. And so Freshman went to number 1 though, right?
I went to number 1 on the alternative charts. I think it was number 3 on the pop charts, which is a great feat considering all genres of music make it into the pop charts. Yeah, we knocked U2 off the number 1 spot on the alternative charts. That was a huge thing for us. I'm a huge U2 fan. I have been since I saw them in Munich, Germany back in '83. I was such a huge fan, and that was a bit of a thrill. Not that I'm a really competitive guy, but by the way, the song that we knocked off the charts was not a great song of theirs. It was Staring at the Sun, I think it was called, which was, you know, it was an okay song, but it wasn't, you know, if we had gone up against Sunday Bloody Sunday or something, it never would have been a number 1 song.
You're like, you know, you're like knocking Mysterious Ways off the charts, like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So who are some of your other musical influences? You mentioned U2.
Yeah, so I was a huge fan of Elvis Costello, still am. I think lyrically, the tongue-in-cheek approach, I think wordplay, the guy is probably the most prolific lyricist, songwriter I've ever known. And you know, Peter Gabriel, a huge fan of Peter Gabriel growing up. And I think that's a little bit why I don't sing from the diaphragm like you're supposed to. I sing from the throat because I love that full sound, the Gabriel-esque sound. You know, he was a huge influence as well. I was a big fan of the Police. So the early stuff has got that kind of borderline punk beat thing going on, but catchy melodies. But I would say right now, the band that influences me most is the band called Elbow. I don't know if Elbow's popular, that you might know them, but they're an English band that's been around since the mid '90s, and they just make every single album is fantastic, and they have influenced me over the past 10 years for sure. So
What was the first concert you went to, Brian?
that was that U2 concert. We weren't allowed to go to concerts when I was a kid because of that really strict Christian upbringing. So I joined when I was in the army. I joined the army when I was 19, and my friends were like, "Hey, we're going to go see U2 in Munich," and I was like, "Who?" I don't think. I think maybe Under the Blood Red Sky came out then. They were promoting that. So I didn't really know them other than maybe the song Gloria, I think was kind of a semi-hit early on. And I went to this, it was an arena in Munich, and I was just blown away. I was like, oh, this is what I should be doing. I shouldn't be in the army, damn it. I need to be up there. So not only did it influence me in a performing way, uh, it was a great musical influence. The Edge taught me, for a guy that's not really he wasn't really a great guitarist in the beginning, he found a sound that was unique, with the delays and the whole thing. And I thought, well, there's something interesting. And then I tried doing that for myself, and it was like, I just sound like I'm trying to be you too, and so discouragement there. But Joshua Tree came out, and there were so many great songs on that record, just song after song after song. It was like,
Mhm.
what's the great REM record? Oh, Automatic for the People for me was an album in the '90s, early '90s, where wow, you we're allowed to do anything. You know what I mean? From the first song, Drive, where he uses the delay on his voice, to all the great acoustic and mandolin stuff. Oh man, I was just like, wow, the world now is wide open for us as a band. And I think that did come out in '90 or '91, so that was early '90s.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Were you surprised when people were mad that there was that U2 album that was just automatically put into your iTunes catalog, and people were like, "What the fuck? I don't want don't do that. I don't want that
That's
in my."
the, yeah, I mean, listen, I think being on the inside of the industry, I totally got why that happened. Would I ever have our band do that? Never. I mean, it was really presumptuous. But, didn't they take like $1 billion paycheck for doing that? It's like, okay, I
Yeah.
mean, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, are people that precious that they can't have an album or automatically be on their phone or whatever? It's like, come on, what does
yeah.
it matter?
Like you
Just
can't
delete
delete
it.
it. You can
Yeah,
just delete it. It's
delete
Yeah.
it.
fine.
Yeah.
It's not a great record either. It's unfortunate. It's
Yeah.
one of their not great albums.
Maybe that's what
Yeah.
people were pissed off about. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not a good record.
Yeah, maybe that
Again.
is it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So if they had gotten Octung Baby or something, you'd be like, holy shit, thank you.
for
Yeah.
free.
You know.
So Brian, how did growing up in a strict, was it very strict religion? How did that affect you as a
Yeah.
songwriter, or did it at all, or did it, you know?
Oh, definitely. No, all of my stuff, more of the solo stuff is peppered with phrases and whatnot, biblical leanings and stuff. I'm an atheist now, by the way, but I do like to write about that stuff because to me, it's mythical.
Mhm.
I don't believe it. It's all mythical, and it's fun to dip in and dip out and dip in and dip out of it. Um, I think I can debate with the best of them on the Bible because I knew so much.
Right.
So growing up, we would go to church twice on Sunday and once on Wednesday and read the Bible and pray before and after every meal. It was very Amish-like. That's how Christian Reformed is. The Christian Reform was formed, I think, the Dutch left England, the Church of England. Usually, when you reform something, you make it a little more modern. They wanted to make it much stricter. That's why they reformed the original Christian church. So it was very strict. No, we couldn't listen to anything that was secular. Everything had to be Christian music until my brother snuck in a Kiss record, and then ironically, I was born again.
Funny how
Oh,
that happened.
sorry, Todd, was that the turning point for you in terms of your religion? Like, how did you decide,
Absolutely.
from one extreme to the other?
Well, that didn't happen until I want to say when about halfway through the marriage with my ex, I started to really question it. I think it probably happened mostly when my parents passed. When my father passed, it was like one of the things that really set me off on it was, my father was a bit hypocritical. Not a bit, he was pretty hypocritical. Do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing. And when he died, we were all, me and the brothers and our sister were sitting in the, in the congregation for the service. And the minister, I want to get this right, at the end of it, he said, Bob, my dad, Bob had one more thing that he wanted to say to his sons. And he said, come to Jesus. And that's how he closed it out. Well, all of our mouths just dropped like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? My dad from the grave called us out in front of, 200 people. I mean, there were a couple people that actually guffawed. My niece actually laughed out loud. She was just like, holy shit, what a brazen mood. And I think that was one of the few things that happened where I was like, yeah, this is all bullshit. But no offense to anybody that does it. But for me personally, I was like, enough already. This is not how I want to live my life. But, like I said, being atheist, it doesn't make any difference in the music. It hasn't made a bit of difference. I'm still the same person. I still write the same. I still have the same story ideas. I mean, I wrote pretty vivid stories in some of the solo stuff that made me sound like I was not a Christian, or I was an atheist already, or at least agnostic. But for the most part, it's the same. I'll still write those same songs no matter what. I've never written a praise song, so that would be inauthentic.
Right.
But if a Christian record label came to me and said, "We love your storytelling, consider writing a praise song," nah, I would no, zero interest.
Right. You draw
I
the
don't care
line.
about
You have that, Brian, where's the best place for people to, check you out, follow along? Like, where are you most active online, do you think?
I think I'm most active on TikTok now. I got a little fake feud going on with Rob Thomas and Stephen Jenkins, which is a lot of fun.
Oh, nice.
And people get a kick out of that. They'll see a side of me they don't normally see. And I do enjoy scrolling through TikTok. It's probably my favorite. So find the Verve Pipe on TikTok, Brian Vander Ark, and the Verve Pipe on Instagram as well. Yeah, go to the website if you want to get tour dates and that kind of thing. But that's definitely the best place.
Cool. Thanks for joining us today, Brian. It was great to meet you and great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Todd and Mandy. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon, buddy. Good to meet you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
You too.